Welcome to my super type A attempt at being Zen, the podcast. My name is Risha York, and I will be your host. If you are overworked, overtired, overstretched, overwhelmed, and just over it, you are in the right place. We like to say we are currently working towards Zen-ish. I'm thrilled that you've joined us. Let's see who will be supporting us on our path to Zen today. Hello, and welcome back to my super type A attempt at being Zen with your host, Risha York. Today we have resilience coach, Gayle Charach. She's going to share some fun things with us. We had such a great chat when we connected initially, and I thought, oh, I cannot wait to have you on the show. So welcome, Gayle. Why don't you tell us a little bit about what you do and who you are?
Thank you. So I am a mom and a daughter and a wife and all of those good things. And in my professional career, I spent 20 years as an elementary school teacher teaching Hebrew language and art. And I followed that with a 20-year career in technology working with adults. When that ended, I wasn't ready to go back to a sales enablement role, which is the roles that I had been carrying for the last number of years. And as I was trying to figure out what would come next, it occurred to, what motivates me is light bulbs on top of people's heads. So when somebody's getting something, so developing people was the core of what I did for 40 years, first with children, then with adults. And it just felt like a natural progression to move into a coaching role. Of course, I'd coached throughout my career and was formally trained in coaching when I was with one tech company and spent a year coaching director level and above. So it wasn't unfamiliar territory, and it supercharges me to know that I can continue to inspire and motivate in this way. So what I'm doing now is running Gayle Charach Coaching Services, which I just sort of spun up this year organically. I've got a single coaching program right now that I'm running. I've got a few clients set up in it. My philosophy is that community and human connection is so critical, especially for resilience.
Yeah.
So my coaching program has a component that has people getting together, not just one-on-one with your coach, but group coaching as well. And I love it. I mean, I just love, 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 again, the light bulb moments when somebody kind of gets it. And of course, being a lifelong learner myself, there's so much to learn all the time, especially where the brain's concerned. So I'm just fascinated. It's a great place to be for someone who's super curious.
Yeah, absolutely. I can relate to that so much. There's a real joy in helping people have
Completely.
those light bulb moments. And hopefully we get to do that here today on this episode. So I've got a list of questions. So I'd love to dive right into the first one. As on this podcast, we talk a lot about finding our path to peace. And it's really focused for those of us that really struggle to find those quiet moments that are constantly overachievers, super driven. We haven't quite learned to relax, or at least we haven't quite learned to find moments of quiet, or they're not frequent enough, right?
Mm.
And so, how does resilience support our path to peace?
Such a great question. Um, so here's what I'm going to share with you. Let me start with what my month has looked like. A month ago, there was a terrorist attack in Israel that my nephew narrowly missed by a half an hour. He was due to perform at the music festival in the South, was a half an hour away from the festival when he called the organizer to ask where to park and found out what was going on and was told screaming into the phone, turn around and head north. He was due to get married 2 weeks later, and I was due to be on a plane to go to that wedding. But of course, all flights were canceled. So I missed my nephew's wedding. Of course, my family in Israel were all very concerned about them. We've got 3 soldiers in the family. So there's a lot of overwhelm with that.
Mhm.
Not a lot of peace, not a lot of peaceful nights, a lot of very graphic and visual imagery that was very disturbing.
Yes.
But what we saw coming out the other side was an exercise in resilience. Like, I mean, I can't say I've never seen, because we have seen it before. Those of us who are in the Jewish community, have seen this before. We know resilience. We practice it. So that was one aspect, and not 2 weeks later, or 3 weeks later now, where I am now on day 8 of my father being in an emergency room hallway where he's
Ugh.
being cared for, until we can find him a bed at a hospital here in Winnipeg. So we've got that going on. My husband was at the doctor the other day, who said, "Mark, I'm a little bit concerned that you may be a stroke risk right now. I think you've got a blood clot." But
Ugh.
when you opened up this video this morning, Risha, I had a smile for you.
You sure did.
So, resilience, how do we use resilience to keep the peace? Look at what I'm going through. I'm here, I'm standing, I'm able to smile, I'm able to find the lightness, I'm able to find the humor. I
Right.
couldn't do that a year ago. There's no way I could have done that a year ago. I would have been swimming in the sea of the negativity of all of the victimized things that were happening around me. What I've learned over the past year is how to regulate my emotion. And with that emotional regulation comes a peace like I've never known.
Right.
Because those of us that are hyperachievers, that feel like we have to always be doing something, and we don't, and I never did take the time in my 40-year career to step back and breathe. And
Right.
just so I ended up in an extremely depleted state. And there's nothing peaceful about depletion.
No,
So no
absolutely
matter how,
not.
yeah, no matter how much I tried to sleep it off, there's no sleeping off burnout. I mean, I was in an intense state of burnout.
Okay.
There's
And
a
so what is
level.
this practice? Like, what is this magical journey that you've been on over the last year that has allowed you to find this emotional regulation that's helping you find more balance and peace in your day-to-day life?
So I have to say, when I first started the journey towards, I know I can't go back to enablement. I don't have that in me anymore. I want to be a coach. How do I do this? And I wasn't sure what I wanted to I just, the coaching thing was in my head, but I didn't know for sure what I wanted to do. I had a little bit of leeway financially where I could manage a few months of giving myself some good time to just think and breathe and recover at the same
Right.
time. So I spent those months reaching out, networking with people, among them you.
Yeah.
Such a joy to bring new people into my orbit who I've so much synergy with.
Yeah.
And as I talked with all these people, it felt like for months I was holding a bowl, and puzzle pieces were dropping into the bowl. And I could start to see shapes and I could start to see colors, but there wasn't a clear picture. Now, I had hired a coach as part of my journey to say, I need someone to hold me accountable, to walk with me on this journey. And at one point, towards the end of our time together, she was really amping me onto you've got to pick a niche to coach to, and you've got to pick your people to coach to. And I said, but you've just spent 4 months teaching me how to surrender. And now your hyperachiever's working in my head. I have my own hyperachiever. I don't need yours. She
Right.
just laughed, acknowledged, absolutely guilty as charged. And not 2 days after that conversation, the puzzle pieces suddenly came to life for me. And it was one of those moments of this word popped into my head. I sat down on my laptop. 30 minutes later, I had a program, I had a clear vision in my head, and it kind of just all came together. Now, as I've continued to grow and learn, I also became privileged enough to be participating in the Positive Intelligence Coaching Challenge, which they offer, I don't know, maybe twice a year. And it's I think 8 weeks in total, where we're really diving deep. And Shirzad, the CEO of Positive Intelligence, has really opened this up in order to have the coaches of the world who have love and light to share give us another set of tools in our toolkit, if you will.
Right.
So his tools are called PQ reps. Positive quotient is the terminology around emotional awareness and intelligence, if you will. So he calls these things PQ reps. What I've come to learn about PQ reps is it's just another way to be mindful, but
Right.
it's being mindful in an active way as opposed to a perfect example or a little story that he shared with us was he was coaching a CFO who was so into mindfulness that he actually taught it on the weekends as a side hustle, a
Right.
hobby. So Shirzad asked him point blank, what is the difference between what I do with you, the PQ reps, and your mindfulness practice? He said, for my mindfulness practice and meditation, I have to go into a dark room. I need a cushion on the floor. I need my incense. I can do a PQ rep while I'm talking to you. I
Right.
can feel my fingertips and take myself back into my sage brain. And I mean, this is a lot of terminology that comes straight from the Positive
Sure.
Intelligence Handbook.
So then
But I,
maybe can we break it down just a little bit? Because we do talk a lot about mindfulness on this podcast, and
yeah,
we do talk a lot about grounding, and we talk a lot about meditation and how,
yes,
I mean, that's a big struggle for somebody who struggles
absolutely.
to sit still.
Yes,
When I say the word meditation, I have clients go into,
apoplectic,
a
like, no.
panic. Yeah. I can't meditate. I can't listen, like I'm not asking you to be, George Harrison in a room for 5 hours surrounded by
Candles
incense
and the
and dark
yeah,
hair. I get it.
yeah,
Nobody's asking you to join, you know, uh to be a monk and join a monastery and shut it all down. It's too far, especially for
exactly.
somebody who is grasping for even a moment of peace, right? And so I think just to help the audience connect a little bit with what you're
Yeah.
saying there, it's it's just being mindful in the moment you're in at the moment.
I will give you a perfect example of something that I didn't even know that was doing this until I began in this sort of challenge, and I recognized what I had been doing was that very active mindfulness. A number of years back, I had to drive 45 minutes. I was living in Orangeville and had to drive 45 minutes to Brampton for my work every day. I had this beautiful Sanskrit chanting from Deva Premal and Miten. I popped the CD into my car on the first day to work, and I just felt so good and so calm and so wonderful. I put that CD in every day for a year and a half. I
Right.
knew when I pulled up to Timmy's, this was the song that was going to be on. When I hit that tree, this was the song. When I got to work, my boss would say to me, "Why are you always so zen? You're always just so calm." I'm like, "Here's what I do every day. I come in and I have this chanting on, and what I've noticed is that I'm seeing the color of the sky and I'm noticing the shapes of the clouds and it's almost like I'm meditating, but I'm wide awake."
Isn't it kind of incredible how music can do that for you? I mean, I grew up in a house full of musicians, and from the time I was probably, I want to say 8
Yeah.
until I was probably in my mid 20s, I used to listen to Stairway to Heaven before bed every single night, every
Oh my
single
god,
night.
I
And
love it.
I would listen to all of the tiny little
Yes,
shifts because
the
that song
bells.
shifts so much in tempo and instruments, and so I would listen to all of those details, and then I would find, once I got to university, if I was overstressed and I couldn't handle what was going on, I would put on a piece of music, something like Jimi Hendrix is a great example. I would lay and listen to Jimi Hendrix. The way that he plays
Yes.
certain notes, the
Yeah.
progression of the music, the background, what's happening with the drums. Like when you tried to single out each of the instruments, it was a form of meditation.
Because your mind can't process anything else while you're really focused on this sensation,
It's so
right?
cool.
It
right?
is the
What music
coolest
can do.
thing.
Yeah.
It is and honestly, I mean, we have these lovely pod meetings once a week as we're going through this program. So I'm meeting with other coaches where we get to talk for half an hour about how the practice is going and how we're succeeding. Every week I come to it and I go, this stuff, this is cool shit. It really
Yeah.
works. This shit really
Right.
works.
It's
And
incredible.
it's like a marvel.
And then it kind of blows people's minds when I
That's
say,
it.
I get it. You can't meditate. I get it. I get it. Do you
Mhm.
have a favorite song? Can you
Yeah.
play yourself your favorite song
Yeah.
every day?
Yeah. Yeah.
Just play yourself your favorite song every day, or play a song that is speaking to you in the moment, or that you feel like your soul needs to hear. I'm really big right now into City and Color has a new song called Underground, and
Ooh.
it's literally about running at a pace of a million miles a minute and not connecting
Mhm.
with the people in your life, and then realizing that you're dead and you've missed it all.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
Yeah.
when you hear the lyrics of that song, I'm like, woof.
Yeah.
Like, like
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
feel what he's singing so strongly. So when I hear the song, it just reinforces the mission.
Exactly. Exactly. And what if you could just feel your fingertips for 2 minutes? Just rub your two fingertips together so roughly that you can actually feel the ridges between them. And you're not thinking of anything. You're literally thinking of how many ridges are there? What does
Yeah.
that feel like? I mean, just something as simple as that. And it's funny because within days of starting this, we have to go into the app and we have to do these PQ reps in the gym.
Right.
And within one day, I was on the road after having done this for one day, this little feel your fingertips. And I'm like, what is this going to do for me? I'm in the car, road rage happens. Some guy cuts me off, and my automatic reaction was through the steering wheel, my fingers are going like this, rubbing themselves together. So it just became so easy. It's
Mhm.
something so easy. If you're going into a meeting with someone, right? And there's a little bit, maybe a little bit of tension. If I just focus on looking really carefully at your eyes while I'm speaking with you, Risha, and
Of
I notice
course.
things that I've never noticed before, like how white the brightness of the white in your eyes is. Again, you're not focusing on the negative emotion or whatever emotion. So what I really think the magic of the piece is disconnecting from making a break in that amygdala hijack, basically,
Right,
right?
right.
In that moment where something overwhelming, some kind of feeling that has the potential to be negative, that has the potential to pull you in, the resistance to that is
Mhm.
bringing yourself back to that grounding, whether it's in the form activate your senses.
Yeah,
It could be that
finding.
you're listening for a tune. It could be that you visually are looking at something. And it's even that takes time. I mean, I'll
Oh, of
admit,
course.
the
I
first
mean,
week,
and you can be really good at it for a long time and
yeah,
then not be really good at it for a
yeah,
while.
yeah,
It I feel like that's the other thing, we have this conversation a lot too, where people are like, "Well, great. So like I know it now. Yay. Okay,
yeah.
thanks so much.
It's
I'm
all over. I'm
fixed."
done.
No one's fixed.
No,
It's a practice
no,
for a reason, right? And so we have to
absolutely.
practice to make it present and functional and working for us. And if you stop, and I get it, like no judgment, sometimes you just stop. You stop, so you start again.
That's it. Exactly. It's about being compassionate and loving to ourselves and forgiving ourselves and saying, it's okay. Listen, I've been sitting in a hospital with my dad in a hallway for 8 days. I
Yeah.
don't have the capacity to listen to the videos every 4 hours that they're sending me. And it's part of my practice. And it took me a few days to be kind enough to myself to say, Gayle, it's okay.
Yeah, that's
You'll go
okay.
back and you'll do them later.
Yeah, a
Not a big
hundred
deal.
percent. And
Not
like
a
we
big
were
deal.
saying, so I've had COVID. My whole family's had COVID
Yeah,
for the last 3 weeks.
it's crazy.
So,
Oh,
you're up all night and you're coughing your brains out. And, then I'm trying to sleep in the spare bedroom, and then I'm freezing and I don't have enough blankets and the kids stole all the pillows. And,
oh,
you've got a laundry list. And as we know, when you run your own business, and I'm sure there's people
yes.
listening who can relate to this, when you're sick, everything, it's a full
It
stop.
starts. That's it. Yeah.
There's no like little trickly things that keep happening. It's a full stop.
Yes.
right?
Which is additional stress on our hyperachievers.
Ooh, man, does that hurt?
Oh
So,
yeah.
my husband comes up and finds me laying there semi-conscious with my laptop on my lap,
Oh my
like just
gosh.
trying to get at least a couple and he's
No.
like what exactly do you think you're doing? Like what exactly is so
Eh,
important at this exact second? And I'm
That
like,
your
no, no,
health
I know
is
I have a column due.
exactly.
If I can just finish my column and get it sent in, then it's okay. I've got nothing else to do. But then at the same time, like there are certain responsibilities as a business owner you can't completely ignore, right?
No. Yeah.
So, for me, it's been a matter of I was on an exercise routine. I was doing so good and I was in really great health. And then I got COVID and I had to be like,
Best laid
it's
plans.
it's okay to
Yeah.
not get on the exercise bike today.
Yes.
It's okay to book your entire day off except for that one little 30-minute thing that you absolutely have no choice but to do.
Yeah.
It's okay to take the next 3 days off because you don't have anything permanently scheduled that has to happen
Yes. Yeah.
because I make my own timelines.
Exactly.
And so I think what we do when we're hyperachievers is we're like, no, that needed to be done by Friday. Who said?
Yeah. Who says that's it? Exactly.
Like, who
Your
says,
business.
unless you're on a real deadline?
Yeah.
Who
Yeah.
says? Who said that? You're in charge. You're the one in charge.
Exactly. Exactly.
Right. And it's funny because I think that it's a struggle for our hyperachievers who work for someone else
Completely. Completely.
because you're
Because
not
then
in
it's
control.
you're not just disappointing you, you're disappointing others. And that
And
becomes
that's,
even a heavier burden. Yeah.
oh,
Yeah. Yeah.
and that's hard. But the thing is I think it also requires a huge shift in how we manage a corporate space where we start to give people more grace and understanding when they're not well, when we start to
Yeah.
give people more grace and understanding where, maybe they were able to function at 120% for the last 2 weeks, but maybe that also means for the next 2 weeks, they're going to function at 40%.
Exactly.
And you have to
Exactly.
allow them to do it.
100%. 100%.
Right.
One thing I wanted to just reassure your listeners about, because just going, I want to take it back to the practice of the feeling and sensing
Yeah.
having your senses come alive. Um, I just want to share these stories because I think they're hilarious and indicative of nobody gets this perfect out of the gate.
Right.
So the first week was all about our senses. The day one was all about the touching and the feeling. And as I'm feeling my fingertips and I'm listening to this guided meditation of, for 2 minutes, 2 whole minutes, I had to quiet my brain, feel the ridges of my fingertips. And all I could think of is, I need more lotion. I can't feel my ridges. My fingers are too wrinkly. So again, I laughed, I threw the thought away, and I came back and kept trying to feel the ridges. The next day, the sight, or I think it was a sound. Listen for the furthest sound you can hear, really hone in on it. Well, my hearing is really bad. So I struggled to hear something in a distance, and all I kept thinking was, I need to invest in hearing aids. I really do. And then when it said, now listen to the thing that's closest to you, my stomach was going, "Grrr." The next day it was visual. I honed in on a fake plant in my living room that's got beautiful leaves, and I was looking at all the colors and the variegation on the leaves, and all I could see was dust. I'm like,
I
I
was
gotta
going to say, I knew where you're going with that one. I've been
so
in the same place.
exactly. So it's perfectly normal for this to happen. And it's perfectly normal that even though you dedicate 2 minutes, out of that 2 minutes, it may only be a half a minute that you're really honing in on those ridges,
Yeah,
right? But that's okay because tomorrow when you try it, it may be 45 seconds that you
sure.
can feel the ridges. And by day 3 or 4, you're going to be up to 55 seconds of really feeling, and those thoughts that are intruding, they start to slip away. They really do. I mean, we give them permission to go away, but they do start. So I want to encourage your listeners that even if meditation or mindfulness via meditation feels daunting to you, there are tiny incremental little things that you could do, and
Yes.
it doesn't take long to build that new habit. And what it's generated for me, something as silly as spending 2 minutes touching the ridges of my fingers together, is a sense of calm, peace, and grounding like I've never had in my life.
Yeah, that's
Really.
incredible. And you know, it's funny too, because I think when we're hyperachievers, we're also, a lot of us are very rule bound. And
Yes.
so we like a rule. So
Mm,
what I've always done for my clients who are in this space is, I get it, right? Like you can't focus on A because you noticed B,
yeah.
right? So I can't focus on the plant because I see all the dust. So what I've done for myself, because I see this in myself, is given myself a 3-step rule. So because I can be a little OCD, and now I have children.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I'll tell you, like, having children and OCD is one of the most frustrating feelings I think I've ever had in my whole entire lifetime.
I can only imagine.
It's awful. Like it's an awful feeling, and I'm recognizing that it's within me. It's not
Mhm.
their fault. It's
That's it.
me and my reaction,
Yeah.
right? And so what I've done is I've made this 3-step rule. So, okay, you notice the dust bunny in the corner, or you notice the dust on that plant. That's fine. You don't have to move into action at this exact moment. You've
Nope.
noticed it. Noticing it is step 1. That's fine. Leave it alone. Walk away. I'm giving you permission to completely ignore that that exists at the moment. You
Yeah.
cannot be everywhere at the same time.
Yeah.
Step 2, oh, you've noticed it again. Good for you. It still needs to get done. Put it on a list now, okay?
Yeah. Yeah.
Now you've noticed it twice, put it on a list. It's going to get done, but it's not the end of the world. Let's not hurt ourselves over dust over a plant, right?
That's it.
When you've noticed it the third time, it's going to start to make you a little anxious. So if you have a window of time, do it now.
Right.
Just do it.
Right.
Handle it and get it done with. Now you've noticed it 3 times and you get to cross it off your list. How
That's
great
it.
crossing things off lists feel. So good, right?
Yes. Yeah.
So this is my 3-step process around that, because like you
I
said,
love.
right? When we're hyper achieving and when we're really observant too, and
Yeah.
hyper vigilant, I mean, really
Yeah.
is what it
Yes.
is.
Yes.
You're seeing all the things and it always needs done, and you can get torn in 30 different directions. And there's a lot of conversation these days around like adult female ADHD, which to me
Yes.
just sounds like being a mom in a house. Like you do one thing and then you realize another thing needs
And
done,
working.
you're doing that
And
too, and
work.
now you're
Yeah. And
right.
work.
I'm like,
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
isn't this everybody's life? I
Exactly.
don't know if I need an ADHD diagnosis. I think I just need like, I'm a woman that lives in a house with several people. And so I do a lot of things all the time without planning.
It's
But
so
that
true.
rule has sort of helped me be like, yes, that needs done, but it's not a priority at this exact second. And if it's something that's quick enough, that can just be done by the third time I notice it, knock it out, like get it done and
That's
stop
it.
thinking about it.
Because it's going to keep coming back. Yeah.
And it's
Yeah.
going to keep bothering me,
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And bigger projects will do that too,
Yeah.
but that requires planning, right?
So exactly. And there's another element too where those of us that are hyperachievers and feel like every moment has to be the most valuable, full of quality everything. Well, don't tell me. I mean, I go brush my teeth every morning and I use the Sonicare electric toothbrush that has a 2-minute timer. So I
Yeah.
have to brush my teeth for 2 minutes. So instead of spending that 2 minutes thinking about my a list for the day or my challenges with my dad and which phone calls I'm going to make and which press I'm going to call today, I spend the 2 minutes literally feeling how that brush feels on my gums
Yeah.
and how clean my mouth is starting to feel, making sure I get every film out of every crevice and every corner. And by the time the 2 minutes is done, I've gotten some PQ reps done
Well, this is it, right?
without even thinking. And you
Something
can't
is
tell me that when
simple.
you don't have 2 minutes to go to the bathroom.
So this happened to me once. I was talking about self-care in a keynote,
Mm,
and somebody at the end was like, "You don't know my life. I don't have time." And I was like, "Whoa, okay. It sounds to me like self-care is something that you really need if you're that reactionary,
that's
right?"
true. Yes. Yeah.
And secondly, like, I appreciate I don't know your life. I completely appreciate that. I do. For me, I feel like I run at a million miles a minute every single day from the second I get out of bed until the
Yeah.
second I go back to bed.
Yeah.
But within that time, something as simple as brushing my teeth, something as simple as taking a sip of a beverage, tasting it, sipping it,
That's
noticing the
it.
temperature,
Yeah.
drinking it, feeling
Yeah.
it go down. I mean, how many people are addicted to coffee, and did you sit and enjoy the coffee, or are you just inhaling it to get through your day?
To get the caffeine. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Like, sit in it because you're
Exactly.
doing it anyway.
Exactly. So the question is what to sit in, right?
What do you
So
sit in? And
sitting in
anything
those
sense.
moments versus sitting in the moments of the emotionally charged emotions, right?
Yeah.
The sad ones or the heavy ones or the really dark ones. Who wants to live there all the time?
And I
You
don't think you want to live there, but certainly it's important to sit in them, feel them, and
feel
then,
them 100%, but then you've got to get through it. And so what I found, and I love the language of positive intelligence and the way they frame things up, where you've got this judge that's been imposed on you over time, and the
right.
judge is the owner of all those saboteurs, like the hyperachiever and the hypervigilant, that pop in and tell you you're doing everything wrong. But the other interesting thing I've come to understand about this judge character is that it's not only judging me, but I'm judging others through that judge lens. I'm
Oh,
also
yeah.
judging circumstances through that judge lens. So if I can pull myself away from that judge and say, you don't own me, I own me, my sage brain.
Yep.
And if I can make those decisions, even a process as heavy as grief,
Yes.
which is not easily managed by anything, is so much easier when you're doing it from that place of sage
Yes.
versus that place of judging. The place
Agreed.
of judging pulls us, it's like a vortex of an abyss that it
Yeah.
pulls you into. That's what it feels like. Where I'm always looking for the glimmers of light, because I truly believe that in no matter how dark things are,
Hmm.
somewhere there's a little thread. And if I can find it and pull it, I'm going to haul myself up and out.
Yeah. Well, and I like that you mentioned judgment because, I'm a firm believer there's a list of universal fears, right? And on that list of universal
Absolutely.
fears is fear of judgment.
Yes,
And when we include judgment in our lives towards others or towards ourselves, it's actually not doing any of us any major favors. And
exactly.
so a lot of times I'll be working with a client and say, how did you feel about this? Or actually, I'll bring it back to me. Okay. When I was in therapy, I had quit my corporate job and I had gotten myself busier
Mm.
after I had stopped working and was
Yeah.
taking a break than I ever was working, which was hilarious because I was working two full-time jobs when I was working.
Oh my
So,
God.
how on earth did I manage to get myself so busy?
Exactly.
Right. So, I'm sitting in her office and she says, if you could do anything in the whole world, if you could do anything right now, what would you do? And I was like, no. And she's like, no, 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 no judgment. Like, you just got to say, like, if you could do anything, what would you like to do? And I was like, I just want to get baked and play Tony Hawk for like 2 weeks. And she laughed and said, do
Then
that.
do it. Do it.
And
That's
I was
it.
like, hey, I'm not 19 anymore. That's not acceptable adult behavior. And she said, oh,
Right.
isn't
By
that
whose
interesting?
standards?
Where does that come from? Who
Yeah.
decided that's not acceptable adult behavior?
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Right. And I was like, well, I don't know, me. I can't imagine not doing anything for 2 weeks other than playing video games. And she was like, why not? Like, did you not leave your job in order to manage your mental health?
That's it. Is play not an important part of your mental health?
Is play not an important part? And so she was like, I say do it. You're going to do it. And that's your homework when you leave here. And I was like, oh my God.
But she knew how to reach your hyperachiever. This is homework.
Homework. I could never leave homework undone. So I
I
go home.
love
She's
it.
like, you're going to tell your husband I am not to shop. I am not to make meals. I am not to. You literally have no job. You have nothing to do, like, other than the bare essentials of, like, you want to have a shower, or like you don't do anything you don't want to do for 2 weeks, and you're going to just play Tony Hawk and smoke pot or whatever it is you want to do. And I was like,
Amazing.
that sounds incredible. So I did. And you know what? It was a wonderful break. By day 8, I was kind of done.
Yeah.
There was no way I was getting through 2 full weeks of it, but I
Yeah.
had made a promise to her that I was going to do the 2 full weeks. So I was like, okay, I'm going to keep going. So I finished my 2 weeks, and then we started talking about how you reintroduce things. And it was literally, I didn't realize what was happening at the time, but what it was is sort of retraining my nervous system. I
Ah.
was so used to functioning at a million miles a minute and doing
Yes. Yeah.
everything constantly and go, 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 go. And, I'm not here to spout the benefits of medical marijuana or however it works on whoever. We'll have a whole other podcast on that.
Yeah. I'll join. I'll be
But,
on.
but what I have always found marijuana to do for me, because I have I'm queen of side effects. So Western
Mm,
medications to me, it's
yes.
one thing after another. I get all the side effects. I'm in the hospital. It's awful. I am
Ugh.
currently actually covered from the medication I have from COVID in a rash from my head to my toe. You wouldn't even know. It's awful.
Oh,
So I get everything, but marijuana's never affected me in a negative way. But what it does do is bring me to a present space. I get
yes.
very present. I get very aware of my senses.
So interesting.
So it
So,
grounds me
yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
and puts me in a place where I'm not thinking and obsessing about the future. I'm not thinking and obsessing. And I'm not telling people, like, go out and try pot. Maybe that's going to solve all your problems. I'm
Yeah.
just saying, for me, it was something that really helped me learn to curb my hyperachiever
Yeah. Yeah.
and retrain my nervous system to be like, hello,
So,
hi, we're just dealing with what's right in front of us.
so important. And that's it, and it's about the boundaries that we set for ourselves, right? I mean, in this chaos of my father, and so with my father, we took him in on Thursday. He was triaged, brought out to me in a wheelchair. He was taken in by ambulance, brought out to me in the waiting room in a wheelchair, where he sat for 7 hours.
Oh,
Nobody checked on him, nobody anything. A 7 hour mark, it's now 7 o'clock at night. I went to the back and said, I'm sorry, but he's 89 years old and needs to recline a little bit.
yeah,
Oh, there's a recliner over there. We have no beds. There's a recliner. And he showed me this room packed with people, one recliner left in the corner. And so I went to find another nurse. I said, I need your help. The reason he's here is his legs don't work. I can't get him into that recliner.
yeah.
So the guy looks at the recliner in the crowded room, looks at me and says, just a minute, please. And magically a stretcher appeared. So my dad has been on that stretcher in a hallway of emergency in the bright, wide open lights for 8 days
That's
with
awful.
dementia. He has no clue what's going on around him. Every time I come in, he's crying, he's upset.
Oh, of
So
course.
in all of this, my sister-in-laws, like, people are sending me stuff to do with the crisis in Israel, and it's these, and
Oh,
I shut it down. I said,
yeah,
I'm sorry. I'm sorry. Right now, my singular focus is my dad.
yeah,
I wrote a letter to the editor the other morning that was picked up by a reporter who said, wait a minute, your dad is pretty important in this city, and this is the way he's being treated. I'd like to write an article. I'd like to get some government input on this. Da, 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 da. So we had a conversation, which resulted in in her writing, starting to write this article, and in her phone calling, suddenly there's a flurry of activity beside my father's
Oh, I'll
bedside with
bet.
a social worker and an occupational therapist, and let's find a solution here. And they
Yeah.
want to send the customer relations of the hospital to me
And how
through
could you
all
do
of
with
this.
anything more than
Uh,
exactly that? I mean, this is the
Exactly.
thing. I had a
That's it.
very less heated. I tried to take the heat out of the conversation, but a conversation with someone the other day. I was oh, I guess it was about a month ago because I've been homesick for weeks. But
Poor girl.
I had a conversation with someone a while back, and I said, I have to take a break from reading the news right now because
Yes.
I'm highly empathetic and I
Yes.
feel all the feelings, and sometimes I confuse my feelings with other people's feelings.
Yeah.
And when I feel all the feelings and it all feels very heavy and hard to handle,
Yeah.
I can't function.
Exactly.
Like I can't even get up and go through my day.
Exactly.
And I already have, two young people in my house who have very big feelings, and I feel
Yeah.
all of their feelings, and
Yep.
a partner, and I feel all of his feelings. And I can't necessarily escape those on
Yeah.
a regular
Exactly.
basis.
Exactly. Yeah.
But what I can do is sort of remove my responsibility from taking care of the world right now
That's it. Exactly.
and
Exactly.
just get a little bit more
Myopic
short-sighted
on
for a
your,
minute.
yeah, yeah, just on your focus on again, it's all about focusing on what we can control, right?
You have been listening to part one with Gayle Charach on my super type A attempt at being Zen. Please do tune in for part two, where Gayle shares so much more information, so many more tips. It's just such a blessing to have her on. So don't miss out on part two. Thank you for listening. Like and subscribe to our channel wherever you listen to podcasts. Visit www.yorkmotivational.com for more information on my Super Type A Attempt at Being Zen, the coaching program, Lead Without Permission, or visit our contact page to reach out to Risha. Wishing you all continued balance and fulfillment on your road to Zen.